Sometimes you just need to throw yourself at the more low vibrational stuff so that you can then graduate from that. At the same time, you do that with a an observer conscience. You do that knowing that you need to be aware, you need to ponder when it's time to graduate from that. What do we mean by that? Maybe you have those fantasies, you have earthly desires, and and you really want to live through it to accomplish that. And if you're watching this video, you already know that maybe what you desire isn't really what you need right now, isn't really what you need. But you actually need to live through those desires to realize your your true nature, to realize that you actually don't need most of the things you think you do. It's tricky stuff, me as a 23-year old trying to understand things, understand life, and live through it as well. You reach a point where you realize you don't actually need to understand anything. It's mostly about simply living through stuff. Living through stuff gives you the power, gives you the ability, the conscience, the wisdom to actually take a step back and realize what is the part of you that is actually desiring most things, desiring most things. You don't actually need anything to experience happiness, experience joy, experience love. But then again, you realize that most of the things you do are actually a step in recognizing that you don't need them. Right? I feel like I'm going in circles right now talking about this, but it truly is a matter of perspective, a matter of talking about it enough so that you realize those things. Maybe you have a very mundane job and you don't actually know how you can conciliate that with your spiritual nature, and that's fine. But know that that's just a part of life. You you cannot expect things to be different. Expectation drives frustration, because you realize that things do not happen as you expect them to happen. Things happen on their own accord, and it's up to you, it's up to your higher nature to observe yourself in those scenarios, and do not let yourself be frustrated by that, by the fact that things did not happen as you expected them to. So just exist. I think I saw a video, a video title where a guy was saying like, just exist, just live. Why how do you become good at something? You become good at something by doing it a lot of times, circling back, realizing what you did wrong, what you did right, what you can do more of. And it's funny, we talk about life, we talk about living, and we talk about wisdom here and there. True wisdom comes from living, right? If you take the definition of wisdom as you being able to connect the dots and realizing that you don't need to make the same mistakes as other people, that's true wisdom. And that's exponential growth. Because here's what happens: you live, you make mistakes, and through those mistakes, you realize what you need to do more of versus what you need to do less of. But then again, you need to do those mistakes, you need to commit them. That's the only way you will be able to realize on your own your path, right? I like to think of it as a river. I like to think of myself as a river that is going, that is flowing, and naturally it recognizes its boundaries and just flows to other directions. That's tricky stuff. To be able to recognize where you things that you do not need to do anymore, you need to live through them. Doing that makes you acquire wisdom. And I think I've made myself clear. If you feel like you're in a not so comfortable spot right now, you have some things you want to accomplish in your life, things that give you excitement even though you know those things are mundane. I'm not telling you to not do it anymore. Of course, why would you listen to someone on the internet telling you what you need to do? You don't need to do anything, you don't need to listen to anyone, but you can be resourceful and listen to the words that people say, incorporate certain patterns that you recognize and incorporate them within your consciousness. That gives you the ability to use that shared wisdom in your life. Feel compelled to say that I'm not as wise as I make myself to be sometimes. I cannot simply sit here and say what you need to do. I don't know anything. What I know, what I realize is through living, is through recognizing patterns. And you do too. You just sometimes you don't see it, but living through stuff gives you pattern recognition capabilities because you realize that you do not need to make the same mistake as other people, especially if you already have the that belief, that consciousness, that very well said saying that states itself like this: you are the universe experience itself. Okay, what does that mean? That means that every person, the universe is actually learning a little bit more. I would say that even that may be the reason why it's expanding so much, but of course that's completely speculative. But what do I actually mean by that? See other people through who they actually are, doing that, observing that without judgmental value, but recognizing where you would say people made mistakes. Doing that naturally becomes a very good way to learn how to live. We are all here learning how to live, and there are people that like to say how you should live, but in reality you're the one that should make that choice. What you do know, especially if you're watching this, is that it's not because everyone is doing it that you need to do it too. You see, I realize that some things I say, even I can even contradict myself in some scenarios, but that's part of life. Life is contradicting as its nature, right? It's not conflicting. It just happens. Life just happens in different ways, in different channels. It's part of us to be able to center within ourselves, recognize our true nature, and be able to not be rigid enough so that we can ride those waves, we can ride those patterns without setting ourselves into a preconceived box. Once we set ourselves in a preconceived notion of reality, we actually stop ourselves from experiencing growth. We stop ourselves from realizing that maybe what we do right now does not work the same as it did before. Doing that, observing that, realizing that makes us prone, makes us available for higher knowledge to come in. Doing that allows us to become flexible in our own understanding of reality. Okay, what does all that mean? And that's how I circle back to my initial comment. Sometimes you just need to do mundane stuff. You need to, you don't need to anything, of course. Going through mundane stuff helps us recognize what works, what doesn't. Maybe you feel a little more sensitive than other people. In reality, everyone is sensitive. Everyone can be spiritually sensitive. What everyone does not do is recognize that maybe they dull themselves with so many dopamine stimulation techniques and ways that they actually stop hearing their own voice. Your own voice is gonna make itself known, it's gonna make itself heard. It's not gonna do that by shouting within your head, and maybe it does, but that may manifest into your life as things falling apart, as things not going the way that you thought they should. I wish you luck in this journey. Feel very grateful to be here, and And I really wish you get the message. You get the message that I am not someone who believes they're right 100% of the time. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and continuing continue going forward one step at a time.